Welcome to Business Class. I'm Steve Ekstrom from Learn Tourism, a nonprofit academy dedicated to advancing the tourism industry through innovative training and sustainable practices. Our mission? To empower travel professionals and communities with the knowledge they need to create meaningful, authentic, and sustainable tourism experiences. Ready to join us on this journey? Visit learntourism.org and start making a difference today.
Hi, my name is Erin Duggan. I am the president and CEO at Visit Sarasota County.
Welcome to Business Class. I am so delighted to have you here for a couple of reasons. Number one, you and your cohorts have done some amazing work with community engagement and stewardship. You've got such a unique location, and I want to hear more about that. The other is I'm actually local.
Are you in Lakewood Ranch?
I am.
It's a great area. We used to say it was just National Geographic in our backyard. Every day there was
Something.
deers giving birth and
I have seen birds there that rival emu and ostrich for their size. And
yes.
I've never seen that elsewhere. And I've been all over.
Yeah, it's funny because of course we have sandhill cranes everywhere, but it's funny over here, not only do we have the sandhill cranes everywhere, but there's a lot of turkeys. There's like wild turkeys and they're ginormous too.
Did you grow up in the area?
I did. My parents moved here for a job when I want to say I was in third grade. So for all intents and purposes, I do feel like I grew up here. I went to elementary school, middle school, and high school in Sarasota County. And my husband went to middle school and high school in Sarasota County. So we do feel like, even though we weren't born here, we do feel like locals.
What is something you love about the area?
I always say to people, if you ask 5 different people what their favorite thing to do in Sarasota County is, favorite activity, you're going to get 5 completely different answers. That to me is what makes the community so special. For me, I would have to say these last few years, I think it's been probably going out to eat. I love going to new restaurants. I love going to old haunts. I love happy hours. Especially if there's live music or good people watching. But I think too, just enjoying, we always call it just enjoying the outdoors. Even in the summer, I enjoy sitting on my back porch. I'm used to the Florida summers. And so I enjoy being outside. I enjoy moving my body. I just think Sarasota County has so many opportunities to do that, no matter your age.
What do you think is the greatest misconception about the area?
Oh, goodness, that's a great question. I would say if you went back 20 years ago, there might have been a perceived notion that the community's sidewalks rolled up, whether it was by 7, 8 o'clock at night, no nightlife, or seasonally, that it was a very seasonal community. So I think those would be the 2 notions that may existed and quite frankly were accurate 20 years ago. A lot of downtown Sarasota restaurants would even close in the summer just because there wasn't a lot of business. I think that those 2 things could not be further from the truth today. I do think Sarasota County's got a vibrant nightlife and you've got options. I think that the community skews a little younger, and I think we absolutely are a 12-month a year destination. I don't know that the seasonality that used to exist many years ago exists anymore.
I think a couple of things probably feed into that. One is the population boom in the area. The number of year-round residents who are there now compared to 20 years ago is drastically different. And I think for me, being somewhat local, the people that are there in the summer are there because they enjoy the same things that people would enjoy in the winter.
Yes.
The sun, the sand, the beach, the nature, the golf, all of these things. And now we don't have to stay in the city up north to be able to enjoy all those things while still working.
I think you're exactly right. And I think of my in-laws who up until probably 2 years ago, absolutely were teetering back and forth between here and upstate New York. And about 2 years ago, after doing that for a good 15, 20 years, they just decided we like it down here more. And we like it down here more year round, and they don't go up north for the summers anymore. While that's just an isolated incident of somebody that I know, they are seeing that amongst their friends. And I'm just anecdotally hearing it more and more. So I think you're right. I think a lot of what used to be seasonal residents just aren't seasonal anymore.
One of the things that I found a lot of people who work in destination marketing like most about their jobs is the fact that it's in a way giving back to the community and the communities that they love. Do you find that to be true in your case? And how did you end up in this situation?
I always like to say I lucked into it. I just had an interesting path. I probably finished college knowing I wanted to go into marketing and PR, but was doing it more for nonprofits. And eventually ended up, and again, this was like 20 years ago, ended up working for the EDC, the Economic Development Corporation of Sarasota County. And on that side, obviously, you start to understand more what economic development is and why it's important to recruit new businesses to Sarasota County and why it's important to help the existing businesses be more successful and grow. In my involvement with the EDC 20 plus years ago, I met Virginia Haley, my predecessor, who retired last year after serving as the president of Visit Sarasota County for 24 years. And in my meetings with her, EDC, working alongside VSC, I personally realized, oh my goodness, I think I could utilize my marketing and my PR and my communication skills on that side in a bigger way than what I was currently doing. And it just worked out that one day Virginia pulled me aside and said, look, I have a PR coordinator position open. Would you be interested in it? And I remember it was a huge pay decrease from what I had been making. I'm very fortunate that I have wise counsel between my mother and my father, who are both executives. My mother was an executive at FCCI, my dad a lawyer. I'm married to a lawyer that also was excellent counsel. And they all said to me, it's not about the money when you're young. It's about getting on the path that's going to lead you to where you want to go. And if this is your calling, let's do it. Let's make sacrifices where we need to make sacrifices to go down this path. And it's the best decision I've ever made. If you would have told me 20 years ago that I would still be working at the same place, 20 years later, I would have said absolutely not. But I think that's a testament to this industry, to destination marketing. It's so different. It's so diverse. Every day has completely different challenges where we get to take a step back and look at it from 30,000 feet and try and figure out what's the solution to solve that problem. Who are the folks in town that we need to be collaborating with? And I think too, we talk a lot about in our industry, and I would imagine it's true in any industry, but where do we lead? Where do we support? Where do we advocate? Because we're not always going to be the leaders of every issue, of every cause. And so I think in my role, as I am looking at these problems and I am trying to figure out who I need to sit alongside the table with, my role might be leading, my role might just be supporting, my role might be advocating, but goodness, there's a lot of things that happen. And I think how we market a destination can impact economic development, can impact how the hospital and the sheriff's office and the county government and the school board are recruiting teachers and cops and engineers. And so I think you start to see that destination marketing isn't just a pretty website and content telling visitors what they can see and do when they're here. It's really building a community's brand so that, yes, you get what I just said. You've got folks motivated to want to come here and visit, whether as a leisure tourist or as a meeting attendee or as a sports participant in a rowing event or a parent of a kid who's in a BMX biking event, whatever. But I think we also understand that what we're doing really impacts workforce and impacts resident sentiment and what residents think of tourists, and how a resident thinks of a tourist is how a resident is going to treat a tourist. And we want residents to treat tourists well and to understand the value that they bring to our community so that we continue to be a destination that's got a good reputation. So it's just interesting to me and it's fascinating. And to your point, it absolutely makes me feel like I'm giving back to the community and I'm doing good work for the community and alongside all of these phenomenal community leaders, and that it really does have economic impact. And when I say economic impact, it's like capital E, how we market the community and how we brand the community and how we amplify that brand is really important.
Before we dive back in, a quick word from our sponsor, Learn Tourism, the nonprofit academy, where we're dedicated to transforming the tourism industry with 4 key services: our cutting edge learning experience platform, which offers robust analytics and seamless updates, our custom course development, which ensures tailored learning solutions, subject matter experts who provide deep insights and valuable knowledge, and of course, our engaging speakers who are here to inspire and educate with impactful presentations. Discover how we can elevate your tourism education at learntourism.org.
What has been your greatest aha moment of the last year or so?
Oh, goodness. In the last year. Last year's been interesting because while I have been at the organization for 20 years, the last year I've been the president and the CEO. And so the buck stops with me. I've had a lot of aha moments because I've been able to make changes. I talk to my team a lot about changes. Like, just because I'm making changes today because they're right for the organization today, that's not saying that they would have been right changes 5 years ago, 3 years ago. So I think we have been a phenomenal organization. We've always moved the needle forward and we've always gone in a good direction. And quite frankly, when we've made mistakes and mishaps, which everybody does, we've fixed them, we've learned from them. But I'd say the biggest kind of aha moment for me has been in the last year: where do we need support? What are the things that we're doing every day that are important and they need to still be done? And where does it make sense for those things to be done? What are the things that we're doing that aren't really moving the needle anymore? I get it. They've been important for years and we've been doing them for years and we're tracking these things and we're putting time, treasure, and talent into these things, but maybe they're not important anymore. We've identified some of those things and we've stopped doing some of those things because then we've moved on to that kind of next level where it's like, what are the things that we've not been doing that we now need to be doing? And just reallocating folks' times and where they're focusing their energy. I always say that's not something you can say on a Monday you're going to do and on Tuesday you do it. You really have to spend weeks identifying all of those 3 buckets. And then you need to spend weeks shifting how you're going to adjust to doing new things, to not doing things that you're used to doing. I think the team has had an aha moment with me specifically in the last month because all of those things are coming into place. And I've heard numerous people just be like, it feels good. It feels good to be operating efficiently and it feels good to be making a difference and it feels good to be working on things that are meaningful to people. And I think too, folks are seeing it's free to not do some of those things that, you used to do that you used to think were so important, but now you're seeing that maybe they weren't. We always say aces in places, but I think that's been the biggest aha moment in my first year as president and CEO, is to figure out where we needed to be, put aces in places, and then just step back and let everybody go. And that's been fun.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
As someone in my late 40s, I most certainly know that I learn something new every day, and I am going to continue to learn something every day. But I think when I was in my 20s and my 30s, I just desperately wanted to know it all and wanted to be doing my very best and wanted to be operating at my highest level. I think with age comes wisdom. And I think we've created an environment where we always say, I hope you do make a mistake. I hope you do make a mistake. And I hope you quickly own up to your mistake and we all learn from it. I've heard that's something else my team has said over the years, is that it's really refreshing to know that you are working somewhere where you can make a mistake and that it's almost applauded to own up to it very quickly so that then we can all work together on making it right. I think for me, if I had to go back and tell my younger self something, I'd love to have explained that notion to myself at a younger age. And so that you can sit at tables more confidently and be the person who says, actually, you know what? I don't know much about this topic. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. Or, you know what? I don't know much about this topic. I've been reading up on it. Or I don't know much about this topic. So I've called a few folks in the industry or in the community that I think know more than I do in this area. And so I think it's not a weakness to admit you need help. It's not a weakness to admit that there's other people that can do something better than you. And I think, the earlier in life that you can know that and be confident in that, you're just going to be operating so much at a higher level.
I'd agree with that. I'm a nerd. I love to learn. And being able to say, I don't know that. I don't know the answer, but I'm willing to find out and I'm willing to learn and not be so rigid. That flexibility allows you to, as Maya Angelou says, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, to do better. How do you think your job is going to be different in 10 years from now?
Goodness, that's a really good question too. I think collaborating is key. And I think collaborating when you know that it's in the best interest of the community, of the limited dollars that you're spending, et cetera. I think that's the best path forward. And I think sometimes that can be scary because it's almost like by collaborating with people, what if they take over pieces of what you're doing? I think back to 10, 20 years ago when organizations were a little bit more siloed because everybody was so protective over what they were doing, because heaven forbid another organization comes in and is trying to do it and they can do it better or they can do it at a cheaper cost and all of a sudden you're out of a job. And I personally don't view life like that. I understand that I'm going to do things better than some other people, and some other people are going to do things better than me. I'm not afraid of what the future holds. And I know that the future is going to always be collaborating and finding efficiencies. I think there's just going to continue to be more of that as we move forward. We work very closely, for example, with the Economic Development Corporation of Sarasota County. We work very closely, for example, with the Arts Alliance of Sarasota County. To me, sometimes if someone doesn't really know the ins and outs of what our three organizations do, it might be easy to say they're very similar. They're all kind of marketing Sarasota County. But that's not true. You've got the EDC who's really focused on kind of what I was talking about earlier, relocating businesses here and helping businesses that are here expand and become more successful. That's not what we're doing. We're bringing in more, I hate to use the term heads in beds, but the idea quite simply is that you're making your money outside of Sarasota County. And in essence, you're coming to Sarasota County where you're spending those dollars that were made somewhere else. Yes, you're paying tourist development tax and yes, you're paying sales tax, but you're leaving and going back to the community of where you live and work, but you're leaving those tax dollars, tourist and sales here in Sarasota County. I think what we've done has evolved past that, but nonetheless, that's the core. The Arts Alliance, which of course they are promoting the arts and cultural opportunities of Sarasota County, but they're doing so many other things. They're the association for all of the arts groups, and they're doing a lot of arts advocacy work within the schools and the community. And so the three of us, for example, we work so well together and we don't want to duplicate efforts. There are things where I'm like, you know what, I can do this piece, but then I'm going to pass it off to one of the other teams because this is what they can do better than me. This is what they can do more effectively and more efficient. I just see how far we've come in the last 10 years. So when I think about 10 years from now, I think there's only going to be more of that. And I can only imagine in 10 years, it won't just be two other organizations that I tout off the top of my tongue. It's going to be 5 other organizations. But I love that we all know what each other's good at. They've come to us in these last few years wanting branding support, wanting creative support, wanting marketing support, because they're like, we don't really do a lot of marketing out of the area. You do. Why should we reinvent the wheel? How can you help us? How can we work together? So I think collaborating is key. Finding effectiveness, efficiencies, all of that good stuff. So I would imagine in 10 years, we're going to find a whole bunch more than what we've already found.
And I think there's a great cycle amongst those organizations that you mentioned. A great place to visit is a good place to live. A good place to live is a good place to invest. A good place to invest is a good place to contribute, to give back. And then the cycle just keeps going. And it is that collaboration that makes things happen. How would you like your staff to describe you?
I would like for my staff to describe me as fair, consistent, kind. I will say that office culture is very important to me. And I know it's more than just bringing in donuts or pizza or taking folks out for coffee. It's a lot more than that. I think we've always had a good culture. We've always been very respectful of the work-life balance. We want people to have lives outside of the office. We're very respectful. I always say, if you need to take time off, you don't have to tell me why. It doesn't matter whether it's personal time, whether it's vacation time, because we've got such a great environment in our office. It's very common for people to say to me, oh my gosh, hey, can I take a half a day off? I need a doctor's appointment. I'm always like, yes, you can take a half a day off and you don't have to tell me that it's for a doctor's appointment. I respect you and I trust you and you need to take care of yourself. We had that, but I knew we needed more. I really wanted to take a deep dive into the culture of our office and how we treat each other and how we treat our partners and how we get our work done. So we did bring in a coach who does that. She's actually also a local. Her name is Kristen and her partner's name is Hannah. And they spent a whole day with our team. But we were trying to figure out what our company's culture and what our key values were. And it's funny because if you would have asked me to write them out, they would have been a little different than what they ended up being after our whole team spent all of this time together doing surveys. In a nutshell, kindness was one of them, that we're kind to each other, that we do say good morning and goodbye, and we respect each other's time. If I say I'm going to get this done by this deadline, that we talked a lot about how when you miss a deadline, even if it is for a good reason, that's not respecting the other person's time, because a lot of times, just because your deadline is at a certain point, the other person's got them, they've got their own steps. And so we really talked about respect and consistency and kindness and what all of those things meant. That whole too, like complimenting in public, criticizing in private, having each other's backs. We have over 500 partners. So at that any given time, if a partner's talking to one person on our team and maybe that one person doesn't know what that partner's talking about, instead of throwing your coworker under the bus, tell the partner, hey, let me find out and let me get back to you. When we got to the end of this document, and we actually have it framed in our office, we've got it entered into every single job description on our team. We all know not only is this how we treat each other, but it's almost like if you look at these things and you think, gosh, that's not me. I don't want to live up to some of these values. We've decided it makes it really easy to realize then this isn't the place for you to work. Or quite frankly, you've got someone sitting next to you who's not living up to these values. You will know this isn't really a great place for them to work. I've known people over the years that would probably look at some of our values and think, I don't want to work there. I know lots of people who love going to work, keeping their head down, getting their work done, turning around and going back home. There is nothing wrong with that, but that's just not what our office is. Our office really relies on teamwork. It relies on kindness. It relies on communication. It relies on working with our partners and interacting with elected officials. I'm really proud of doing that work, having it framed in our office. I think the team really felt valued, that they were able to put what they thought into it. I know it sounds silly, but my hope is that folks would say she's fair, she's consistent, clear as kind. Sometimes there might be an uncomfortable conversation that has to happen, but it's in the spirit of clarity. I think everyone knows where they stand. They've got clear job descriptions. If there's something that's not clear, let's talk, because we're going to make it clear. But I think that's why I would thrive on having a team that looks at me as being fair and consistent.
I like that you use the word kindness. For us, it's gratitude. Gratitude is at the root of everything that we do. And to share that gratitude is an expression of kindness, is an expression of recognition of the other people. And much to what you're saying, culture makes a huge difference. What did I not ask that you wish I did?
I think you asked some great questions. We're a 501c6. And if you look around the state of Florida and you look at the destination marketing organizations in the state of Florida, it's about 50-50. Half of them are like us and they're private-public partnerships, and half of them are just county. They're part of county staff. And I have always said, I really truly don't think one's better than the other. I think each side has its pros and cons. But us being a private-public partnership, I always say to my team, we have a lot of masters. We absolutely work for the 5 county commissioners. What's important to them is probably what's important to their constituents. We need to know that, and we need to be making sure that we're delivering to the county commission what they're looking for us to do. Same thing with our county partners. We work for Parks and Recreation, specifically at Sarasota County government. Fantastic team. I would say that we are talking to someone in their team every day. But again, we want to be working in the areas that are important to them. I always say to my team, the best laid plans. I love plans. I love strategic plans. We can do all of the good research that we need to do to figure out where should we be moving the needle the next 3 to 5 years. And then we can create annual plans to get us there. But if all of a sudden something's changing with what the county commission wants or what the county wants, we absolutely need to be nimble and adaptive. We work for them. Same thing with our partners. We have the pleasure of having over 500 businesses here in Sarasota County choose to write us a check every year to be a part of what we're doing. We have an obligation, and it's our honor to communicate to them what we're doing, to share our tactics, our outcomes, our goals, to share our mistakes with them so that they can learn from the mistakes that we've learned from. I always say to the team, that's the nature of this business. We work for lots of folks. It's our job to make sure that we're always keeping our finger on the pulse of what they want. And to me, that's a blast. That's what makes work interesting every day. That's not for everyone. Some people want a plan and they want to enact that plan and they don't want to change the plan halfway through. So again, I think that's always a good thing for folks in this destination marketing business to understand that that's the nature of the beast. To me, I enjoy that. It's what makes the job challenging and thrilling and fun and exciting, but it's not for everyone.
Yeah. If folks want to plan a visit, how would they go about doing so?
Visit Sarasota.com is a wealth of information. Our website's very smart. The content that you would see if you pulled up the homepage right now would be a little different than the content I would see, because of course we've got hundreds of articles that focus on a variety of things that you can do throughout the community. We work with freelance writers to put new content on our website all the time. But honestly, I think even our social media channels has become just such a fun way to keep in touch with what we've got going on and how you can plan a visit. Instagram and Facebook being the two social media sites that we're probably the most active on, and being Visit Sarasota on each of those. I think those are great ways to get started. We do have 2 visitor centers, one in downtown Sarasota and then one on the island of Venice. And then we also have a visitor information vehicle. We lovingly call her Viv, but she goes to where the tourists are. So you'll see her at sporting events and farmers markets. And so those outlets are also really great ways to plan a visit, be inspired, have a conversation with someone who might give you a great idea of something to go and see and do.
Is there anything you'd like to ask me?
Are you in an RV right now?
I am in an RV. I had a house in Fort Lauderdale that I sold almost 3 years ago. And I approached my neighbor who had bought an RV just before COVID and never used it. And I asked if I could rent it for 3 months and take a road trip. I ended up buying it.
Okay.
And nearly 3 years later, I am a digital nomad. So while I maintain an address near you,
Yeah.
and our office location is right there off of Lakewood Main Street, I am presently outside of Orlando, but next week I'll probably be in Georgia or Mexico or Canada, or who knows?
Good for you.
Yeah, everyone on our team gets to work remote wherever they'd like. So if you want to be at the beach for the winter, go to the beach.
Awesome.
If you want to, I don't know, be up in the mountains or up in Minnesota or Michigan, or then go. That's part of what we do. I'm a professional tourist.
Good for you.
Yeah, I am houseless, not homeless, but houseless. And it's a great adventure.
Yeah.
A great adventure.
Thanks for tuning in to Business Class. This episode is brought to you by Learn Tourism, the nonprofit academy where we advance the tourism industry with cutting-edge training and sustainable practices. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to visit learntourism.org to learn more about our programs and how you can get involved. Until next time, stay curious, continue learning and making a difference through tourism.